Stories, Philippines podcast.
There are structures in the world so ambitious, so utterly defiant of natural limitations, that they seem to possess a life force beyond mere engineering. These are the bridges, monuments of concrete and steel designed to impose human will upon the churning chaos of the sea or the daunting chasm of the earth. They promise connection, but in their suspension, they embody a profound vulnerability. And sometimes, they attract a specific kind of dread. For many people, the sheer act of crossing a bridge is not one of convenience, but of paralyzing terror. This specific anxiety disorder is formally named Gephorophobia, a term derived from the Greek word for bridge, gephora. This fear is not always rational. It is a situational phobia that often overlaps with the terror of heights, acrophobia, or the crushing feeling of being trapped, claustrophobia. The sensation is primal, a loss of emotional and physiological control that culminates in a panic attack. I am Jessica, and you are listening to the bonus episode of Stories Philippines podcast. When such an attack occurs, the primitive region of the brain immediately codes the bridge as the source of the threat. The mind becomes convinced that the structure lacks integrity, that a gust of wind might blow the vehicle off, or, most universally, that the bridge will simply collapse and plummet the traveler into the darkness below. Yet, in certain places around the world, this personal phobia merges with a deeper, collective anxiety, a fear rooted not in the structure's physical capacity, but in its moral foundation. When massive infrastructure projects are financed by debt, driven by political vanity, or constructed under authoritarian regimes, the physical integrity of the concrete becomes the visible manifestation of a profound societal distrust. The underlying dread is not merely that the bridge will collapse, but that the entire project was not meant to last, having been cursed by the dubious intentions of its builders. To understand this convergence of structural fear and folkloric horror, we must turn our attention to the Philippines, a nation connected by over 7,000 islands, yet often separated by ambition and myth. Specifically, we focus on the San Juanico Bridge. This immense structure, the longest bridge in the Philippines, connects the islands of Leyte and Samar across the fierce currents of the San Juanico Strait. Designed with elegant curves meant to resemble the letters S and L for Samar and Leyte, it stands as a marvel of engineering, a necessary artery of commerce and travel. But for decades, its physical presence has been perpetually shadowed by whispers of a chilling price paid. The San Juanico Bridge has earned a reputation as one of the country's most notoriously haunted landmarks. Motorists who travel the 2.16-kilometer span have frequently reported spectral sightings. The spirits seen here are not those of generic victims, but specifically the souls of children. Young lives, the legend insists, sacrificed to ensure the bridge's stability and permanence. This story, combining political history, chthonic dread, and the most visceral form of spiritual horror, functions as a master narrative of trauma, making the San Juanico Bridge not merely a route between islands, but a haunting path back through a dark chapter of the nation's history. The San Juanico Bridge is inseparable from the era of its construction, the administration of President Ferdinand Marcos. This context is essential, for the terror that permeates the legend is fundamentally a fear of unbridled authoritarian power. The bridge, which was also known as the Philippine-Japan Friendship Highway Bridge, and formerly the Marcos Bridge, was conceived and executed during a time of intense political maneuvering. Construction began in 1969, coinciding with President Marcos's campaign for re-election. The project was introduced as part of a significant package of high-visibility infrastructure projects, a program later termed the Marcoses Edifice Complex, an obsession and compulsion to build massive, grand structures as a hallmark of perceived greatness. The financial and economic justifications for the project were questionable from the start. At the time of its conceptualization, the traffic volume between the underdeveloped islands of Leyte and Samar was extremely low. Economically, the bridge was not considered viable, yet construction proceeded, financed by foreign loan packages. The total construction cost for the bridge reached $22 million, equivalent to approximately 154 million pesos in the 1970s. This funding came primarily from Official Development Assistance, ODA, loans provided by Japan's Overseas Technical Cooperation Agency, OTCA. Upon its completion in 1973, the bridge was immediately criticized by figures like former National Economic and Development Authority Deputy Director Ruperto Alonso as a white elephant, an enormously costly possession that was useless and difficult to maintain. The timeline and purpose of the bridge cemented its political, rather than economic value. The project took 4 years to complete, finishing in 1973, just after the imposition of martial law. Its inauguration on July 2, 1973, strategically coincided with the birthday of then First Lady Imelda Marcos, who hailed from Leyte. This confluence of high debt, dubious necessity, and political vanity created a fertile ground for deep public suspicion regarding the project's true, hidden costs. It is within this atmosphere of political extravagance and suppressed critique that the gruesome urban legend took root. The myth provides a terrifying moral explanation for the structure's existence. The core narrative holds that the foundation of the bridge required a foundational sacrifice to ensure its ability to withstand the powerful tides and turbulence of the San Juanico Strait. The story claims that the woman in charge of the bridge's construction, widely understood to be Imelda Marcos herself, given the bridge's strong association with her, was highly superstitious. She was allegedly ordered by a fortune teller or spiritualist to mix children's blood into the concrete foundation for the bridge to stand. The legend details that her men would systematically kidnap street children from Samar and Leyte at night, slit their throats at the bridge site, and throw their bodies into the water where the pillars were being constructed. The vanishing of children from the area, the accounts assert, only stopped after the bridge was fully completed. This narrative functions as a crucial piece of political commentary veiled in folklore. During the period of martial law, when conventional political opposition was dangerously suppressed, the public found an outlet for criticism through dark mythology. The story transforms the regime's political cost, high debt, corruption, and the ruthless disregard for human life and economic viability into a visceral physical horror, the murder of innocent children. The tale suggests that the first family's obsession with creating a monumental hallmark of greatness demanded actual, literal human sacrifices. By claiming the foundation was literally built on bloodshed, the folklore permanently delegitimizes the entire edifice and the power structure that financed it. The bridge, built for vanity, became in the public consciousness a visible national scar of that traumatic era. While the San Juanico legend is distinctly Filipino and rooted in specific political trauma, the underlying motif of foundation sacrifice is universal. To fully grasp the power and persistence of the Philippine story, one must recognize that the dread of construction sacrifice is an archetypal human response to the ambition of building big. The practice of construction sacrifice, often referred to as building sacrifice, exists in multiple traditions worldwide, from early American folklore to Northern Europe and Japan. This ancient belief stems from the idea that any massive construction project, a temple, a castle, or a bridge, disturbs the fundamental primal forces of the earth and the spirits that govern the land. The building, therefore, demands a soul or a life force to anchor it and fulfill a need, operating on a grim principle of reciprocity. Scholars categorize the motivations for these sacrifices into two broad categories: appeasement and protection. Appeasement sacrifice satisfies a disturbed deity or force, allowing the structure to stand without immediate supernatural interference. Protective sacrifices, conversely, imbue the structure with resilience, shielding it from future damage, whether from natural disasters or enemy attacks. Whether the sacrifice was intended to bring good fortune or simply pacify the gods, it was often connected to the dedication of major completed buildings. One of the most documented and terrifying examples of foundation sacrifice comes from Japan, where the practice was known as hitobashira, or human pillar. Until at least the 16th century, major constructions, including castles, river embankments, and especially bridges, often required this ritual. Victims were sometimes buried alive within the foundation or inside the wooden pillars. The motivation was explicitly tied to controlling the volatile forces of nature. Large-scale construction was believed to disturb the local feng shui, geomancy, leading to accidents and natural destruction. Hitobashira was overwhelmingly associated with complex, dangerous, water-related projects, such as those intended to manage flooding rivers. A classic example is recorded in the Nihon Shoki, the Chronicles of Japan, early 300s AD, which tells of Emperor Nintoku, who, after a divine vision, ordered the sacrifice of two individuals to appease the deities of the continually flooding Kitagawa and Mamuda rivers. The ultimate goal was to ensure the successful and permanent completion of projects that challenged the natural order. This tradition finds parallels across the continent. In China, a related practice known as Dasheng Zhuang existed. Archaeological evidence, such as the remains of an infant found in the foundation of the Erlitou culture city in Hunan province, suggests the historical reality of this practice. Furthermore, folklore in the region specifically mandated the sacrifice of both a young girl and a boy for the construction of a major bridge, demanding dual payments to the chthonic forces. The requirement of a life force was not confined to Asia. In European folklore, the idea of immurement, live entombment, often appears as a form of foundation sacrifice. Immurement, distinct from burial because it involves sealing a person within an enclosed space until death by starvation or dehydration, was a documented form of punishment in places like the Roman Empire and Persia. But its true power lies in its mythical function. In Romanian folklore, the concept of stealing one's shadow served this purpose. Construction workers would measure a man's shadow with a reed or rope and then bury the measurement at the construction site. The belief held that the man's soul or spiritual potency was then transferred to the growing structure. The victim, deprived of his soul, shadow, would subsequently die, ensuring the building's walls lived a long time. The overwhelming global evidence demonstrates that the larger and more complex a human project, especially one crossing a boundary like a river or a strait, the greater the perceived spiritual life force required to anchor it to the earth and prevent it from being violently reclaimed by nature. The San Juanico legend is thus a chilling contemporary iteration of an ancient universal architectural dread, where the crossing of physical boundaries demands a spiritual payment. To fully understand the horror of the San Juanico legend, it is necessary to examine the specific spiritual ecosystem the builders transgressed. In the Philippines, the negotiation between humans and the natural world is mediated by powerful, often volatile deities and spirit. In Philippine mythology, the landscape is alive. Natural features such as forests, mountains, and especially bodies of water are believed to be inhabited by supernatural entities. The Diwata, often synchronized with fairies, nymphs, or celestial beings, and their male counterparts, the Encanto or Encantado, are the powerful stewards of the land. Their presence is dual. They bestow blessings upon those who honor nature, but inflict wrath upon those who cause harm. The The San Juanico Strait, a powerful, churning body of water, sits at the center of this spiritual ecology. In Filipino culture, water holds deep symbolic meaning, representing life, resilience, and a vital link to the ancestors. Water bodies are frequently considered sacred or inhabited by these spirits. To construct a bridge across such a formidable natural boundary is not merely an act of engineering. It is an act of spiritual defiance that demands acknowledgement and payment to the water diwata or encanto who governs the domain. These beliefs, categorized as folk religiosity, continue to survive in local practices and ritual repertoires alongside Christian institutions. Filipino construction traditions are acutely aware of the need to appease these spiritual inhabitants before disturbing the earth. When building a home or a major foundation, the acceptable and sanctioned ritual is known as padugo.
Padugo involves the sacrifice of an animal, typically a pig, chicken, or goat, with a subsequent sprinkling of its blood on the foundation of the house or structure. This ritual is performed specifically to appease the spirits of the land and ensure a successful construction process, aligning the builder's goals with the natural order. Other related superstitions include positioning the structure according to geomancy and turning foundation posts clockwise to resist typhoons, reflecting a comprehensive spiritual approach to stability. The San Juanico legend derives its overwhelming horror from the fact that the alleged foundation ritual was not the culturally sanctioned padugo. It was the ultimate unholy spiritual transgression. The substitution of animal blood with the blood of innocent children represents a catastrophic violation of the ancient pact between man and nature. The legend argues that the builders, driven by political ambition, did not seek appeasement through respect, but rather through a monstrous, desperate sacrifice, attempting to pay the highest price to stabilize an otherwise non-viable structure. The moral arbitration of the story is delivered through the spirit world itself. Unlike many global foundation myths where the sacrifice works and the structure gains immortality, the San Juanico myth insists that the sacrifice was rejected and ultimately punished by the very spirit it was intended to placate. The legend recounts that the Diwata living within the strait, outraged by the atrocity of child murder, inflicted a curse upon the woman who ordered the construction. The punishment was grotesque. The First Lady developed foul-smelling scales on her legs, a debilitating physical affliction that forced her to hide her legs from public view for the rest of her life. This folkloric consequence is essential to the narrative's enduring power. The Diwata acts not as a demanding demon, but as a mechanism for moral justice. By cursing the builder and leaving the spectral souls of the children to haunt the bridge, the nature spirit condemns the political figure responsible for the cruelty. The Diwata, as the guardian of the strait, effectively declared that the ambition of the Marcos regime was too wicked, even for the ancient spirits of the earth and sea. The punishment ensures that where political accountability failed during martial law, spiritual condemnation provided folkloric closure, permanently affixing the shame of the origin to the responsible party. While the San Juanico Bridge represents trauma embedded in the foundation, other haunted structures in the Philippines testify to unresolved historical violence that clings to vital infrastructure. These hauntings often classify the source of spectral trauma into distinct categories. Historical trauma. The Nara Bridge in UP Los Baños, sometimes called the Never-Ending Bridge, is said to be haunted by the restless spirits of those who perished during the Second World War. Motorists report seeing ghostly apparitions of soldiers and experiencing the unnerving feeling of being watched. Similarly, the San Jose district in Tacloban, heavily impacted by Super Typhoon Yolanda in 2013, is haunted by the spirits of those who died in the storm surges, with the local infrastructure serving as a waypoint for their unresolved journeys. Wound of the Waterway. The Taytay Guba Bridge in Putotan, Iloilo, is haunted by a ghostly ship crewed by dead pirates from the Spanish era. In these cases, the infrastructure serves as a magnetic point for various forms of societal violence, but only San Juanico is tied to the foundational act of creation itself, a testament to the uniqueness and political specificity of its haunting. The San Juanico legend is one of the most powerful and enduring ghost stories in the Philippines because it successfully synthesizes historical trauma, political reality, and deep-seated spiritual beliefs. The spectral children are not just ghosts, they are eternal symbols of debt. Ghost stories serve a critical societal function. They are cultural mechanisms that allow communities to process grief, trauma, and uncertainty by connecting the visible world with the invisible moral dimension. The undead in all their forms are themselves bridges, connecting the known with the unexplained and the private experience of dread with the public, collective memory. The endurance of the San Juanico Foundation myth proves its immense socio-political utility. The story provided a coherent, terrifying, and lasting explanation for the moral cost of the Marcos regime. By creating a narrative where arbitrary power, kidnapping children during martial law, was necessary to achieve infrastructure goals, the myth codified the political ruthlessness of the time into a tangible, unforgettable horror. It also reaffirmed the power of indigenous belief systems, the Diwata, as moral arbiters, surviving even the grandest display of state engineering. When drivers approach the San Juanico Bridge today, they are navigating more than just concrete and steel. Any feeling of gephrophobia, the physical manifestations of panic, the dizziness, the racing heart, is amplified by the cultural knowledge of the blood payment. The specific fear of the bridge collapsing is intrinsically linked to the legend of its cursed foundation. The engineering may be physically sound, but the moral foundation, having been built on atrocity and then rejected by the land's guardians, is eternally shaky. The persistence of the children's spectral presence ensures the debt is never considered settled. The victims of the alleged ritual are forever imprinted upon the bridge, perpetually demanding acknowledgement of the monstrous price paid for national progress and political vanity. In the digital age, this folklore spreads through online discussions, videos, and local communities, adapting to modern mediums while preserving the core historical warning. The tale of San Juanico remains a chilling reminder that the costs of ambition are often not paid in currency, but in the permanent debt owed to the dead. The bridges that span our waterways and chasms are intended to conquer boundaries. They are symbols of human ingenuity, connecting communities and commerce. Yet, the San Juanico Bridge stands as a testament to the idea that some boundaries, the moral limits of power and the ancient sovereignty of nature, cannot be conquered, only violated. The folklore surrounding San Juanico reveals the darkest side of the architectural impulse, the belief that the stability of steel and concrete must be purchased with the ephemeral, priceless life force of the vulnerable. The story, woven from the threads of political tyranny and primal spiritual dread, endures not merely as a ghost story, but as a living document of historical trauma. It ensures that every time a vehicle crosses the great span connecting Leyte and Samar, the traveler is reminded that the bridge is not just a path between islands, but a memorial to the children who were supposedly immured in its foundation, victims of a terrible, rejected spiritual bargain. The most terrifying stories are always those about the monsters we build and the permanent debt they leave behind.